What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla SPY in the overall markets. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be an absolutely insane day as we have Jerome Powell giving a speech at FOMC, not to mention Tesla's earnings. And I'm going to give you guys a preview of what's happening with Tesla's earnings as well. So just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. And the offer ends very soon at the end of March. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with Tesla in the markets. As you guys could tell, Tesla saw a little bit of a dip today, only to get bought back up. So we made a dip to about 386 a share. Tesla was down over 2 to 3%. Then we saw buyers return and they pushed it right back in the green, up 0.24%. So Tesla did see a dip and a bounce. And despite that, the overall market did a good job at holding up and outperforming. We saw the market gap down very hard yesterday after the DeepSeek news came out about how a Chinese model was developed by these engineers and developers. They developed it and they claimed that the model cost less than $6 million to develop, which led to a lot of questions about the legitimacy of the need for as many chips for these companies and the US's dominance in the AI race. Now, as a result of this, I think that the move was very exaggerated. I don't think that Nvidia had to dump like 17% over this. So we made a big dump yesterday, and I said yesterday I was expecting the market to rebound, and lo and behold, we got this nice rebound. We saw a lot of finance kind of like in the red and very flat, but if you look at tech, almost all of tech was in the green. We saw big tech stocks make a big comeback, and this helps many of these ETFs push as well. So let's talk about why tomorrow is going to be very big, and then I'll talk about these charts in a lot more detail. Just know Tesla's doing a good job at holding up, but we're between these EMAs. And tomorrow, with all the data and news coming out, Tesla's going to either eventually break past our 50 EMA and start running to the upside into like the 400s and 420s, or Tesla's about to see a big rug pull and lose 384 to 200 EMA to start dumping all the way down to the 370s. So I'll talk more about this in just a couple of minutes. Let's first talk about what's happening with the markets. Tesla was flat, and just know that when it comes to the markets, some sectors were kind of red, such as like finance and health technology. But once again, tech saw a very, very nice comeback after the big sell-off yesterday, and now we have another big factor. There's two big factors for tomorrow, okay? The first thing is going to be our data. The second thing is going to be earnings. Tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, January 29th, 2025. There's not really much coming out in the daytime, but the market is looking bullish, so I think we could attempt to push approaching this data. We have the Fed rates decision coming out, and the Fed will most likely keep rates the same and pause. There's actually a 96.8% chance the Fed is going to keep rates the same. So I think we're going to be looking for that. And because this is priced in, the market may push a little bit approaching that. However, whether or not the pump continues is going to depend on another big factor, and that is after 2 p.m. at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 30 minutes after the decision comes out, we have the press conference. Jerome Powell is giving a speech at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Whatever the big guy says is going to have a big effect on the way the market's going to move, including Tesla. So what is he going to say? What's going on with this? Well, what's going on is the Fed gave us the economic projections report that came out on December 18th. That's when the market started its big sell-off. The Fed mentioned that they're not expecting to cut as many times as initially predicted for 2025 because of the risk of inflation going up. Now, Donald Trump, the president, has come out and he is pressuring the Fed to cut more and more and more and more. And the Fed, before Jerome Powell said that he's not going to budge. So we'll see what the view happens to be. As of right now, the market thinks the Fed is going to keep rates the same, and we're expecting just a couple of cuts for 2025, but just a very small amount of them because of the risks of inflation going back up. Now, will Jerome Powell take a more hawkish view? Will he continue to say that the Fed is going to have to be very careful? Will he be a lot more ambiguous? If he's more ambiguous and he does not confirm the Fed wants to cut more, if he does not budge or capitulate, and he maintains the stance that inflation is still something the Fed has to monitor, it's still kind of hot and the Fed has to continue to do what they have to do, that could cause the market to slow down. So please be very careful, especially as the S&P 500 is approaching resistance. If Jerome Powell is more optimistic and he says there's been a lot of inflationary progress that's being made, the Fed is doing a good job and there could be further cuts to come. If he says something like that, or if he indicates that there may be more cuts than initially expected, that could cause the market to pump a lot more. So it depends on Jerome Powell's tonality and what he says about the future of our economy and rates. And that's going to cause a very big move in the markets. As you know, Jerome Powell is known for being one of the biggest market makers, so that's going to be a big factor. Now, that's the first factor for the markets, the big guy, Jerome Powell, giving his speech. The last time this guy spoke, let's actually go back on the charts, right? It was like December 18th. We saw Tesla in the market see a massive sell off the last time Jerome Powell spoke. If you look at SPY, for example, it was right here, December 18th, which is right here, the day Jerome Powell spoke. SPY went from 606 all the way down to about 583 in one day. It dumped 20 points in a single day when the guy spoke, so pretty crazy stuff. The market's going to make a very, very big move. That's the first factor. The second thing that's coming out is going to be earnings. Okay. So today I went over the earnings already. Boeing did not do as well. They saw, a big loss for 2024, and they're waiting for their new designs to come out. And then GM announced earnings. They did relatively well because guidance was pretty good for Q1 of 2025. I went over all of this already. But for tomorrow, it's going to be crazy. We have ASML and Progressive and T-Mobile, that's for communications, announcing earnings in the morning. And then after the market is closed, we have Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, and IBM all announcing earnings. Tesla's going to be a big one, so expect some high volatility. Right now, I would say that Wall Street is a little bit more optimistic approaching it, according to some reports, because they're going to be listening to Tesla's AI initiatives, and that's very, very big right now. So we'll see if Tesla can try to pump its share price by talking about their robo-taxis, talking about Optimus and different factors like that. I did see something else that's very different though, and that is there are some reports saying that these Wall Street analysts want Tesla to announce another cheaper model. I don't know about that, so this could be raising expectations a little too high, so we'll see about that. I don't think Tesla's going to do that because they've been prioritizing the robotaxi. Elon Musk made that very clear. But we'll see just to be safe. That's going to be very, very big. We also have the Model Y refresh that came out, and we'll see what Tesla tells us about that. So with that being said, let me do a quick preview of earnings, and I'll talk about the charts in just a couple of minutes. Just know that we're going to be looking for the Q4 2024, deliveries. We're going to be watching to see how their numbers end up looking with the financial results. How are their margins looking? Are they improving? What's happening with EPS and revenue? That's going to be very important for us. Then we're going to be looking to see what their overall numbers suggest, at least for us moving forward. So Tesla did deploy about 11 gigawatt hours of energy storage through its Megapack and Powerwall products, which is very, very good, a new record. We're going to be looking to see how their revenues increased as well. That's going to be very important. We're expecting $27.2 billion in revenue according to different estimates. Some sources say they should beat on that, so that's going to be very good to see that. You guys can see how the consensus happen to be and how Tesla tends to do better. And then we're going to be looking for their earnings just to see if their margins have improved or not. Typically, Tesla sees better margins as time goes on, so let's hope that we get some good-looking numbers. Wall Street's expecting for Q4 of 2024 a gain of about 77 cents per share. So hopefully we see something like this. Other sources are saying Tesla should be doing better than like 79 cents per share, beating on EPS and revenue, which tends to be a bit more bullish. But that's not it right now. We're going to be looking for other expectations about Tesla's, future products, what's going on with their overall growth and other factors like that. There's going to be a lot of talk about like the tariffs coming up under the next administration, how this affects Tesla's new products, the Model Y refresh, and I'm sure Elon Musk will give us more comments about that. I think he's just waiting for that. And then there's going to be a lot of questions about AI. If Tesla could impress investors with more developments about FSD, Optimus, if they say something very exciting about the robotaxi, I'm sure we're going to get more updates about how progress is going and when they should be launching it. If it's delayed, that could be a little bearish, by the way. If it's not delayed, that's going to be bullish. So we'll see about that, guys. Make sure you listen to that very, very carefully. Yes, earnings should be decent, in my opinion. I think that for Q4, they did well because we saw a record amount of their deliveries. But what concerns me would be their guidance. I'm not too sure about how guidance is going to look, at least to start things off. And then we'll see what they say about the future. So let's see about this, guys. It could go either way, at least moving forward. So that's a very, very brief preview of what's happened to Tesla. Now let's just focus on the charts. So moving forward for Tesla, I just want to say that we have a very, very key level to watch for. Heading into tomorrow, there might be a little push towards this 400 area as we got this green bar that formed. But I'm not too worried about that. What's going to matter is going to be Jerome Powell's speech, how that affects Tesla in the markets, and then Tesla's earnings. So tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla makes a move like this. Notice that at least technically we are on a downtrend. So we've been making like lower highs so far. Earnings and Jerome Powell could be the catalyst to help this breakout if you want to turn bullish, to hold above this yellow trend line, then eventually try to retest this blue trend line. And then if we're bearish, you want to break support. So let's talk about the levels. If you're bullish on Tesla tomorrow, we want to see it break 400 and eventually try to break past this yellow trend line of resistance. If earnings go well and Jerome Powell pumps us or something like that happens, we want to see Tesla try to break through this to get into like the 420s. That would be like a more bullish case. That also aligns with this imbalance over here. So this could push us even higher. I think we still have that gap that's all the way left in like the 450s to fill. So we'll see if Tesla's forming a triple bottom like structure to start bouncing. That's always a possibility on the chart. But simultaneously, you could argue that Tesla's making lower highs. And if earnings does not go too well for Tesla, if Tesla delays the robotaxi or something else happens, just hypothetically, we're going to be looking for a move like this. Maybe tomorrow morning we consolidate a bit. And we're going to be looking for a test of this support at 384. So Tesla's got to hold 384. If it does not hold this 200 EMA, there's going to be a risk of Tesla returning to these lows over here all the way back down towards like 372 or even below that. And if that fails us, I think we could be dipping to like 350, unfortunately. So it's going to be a big dump to 350, 370 fails us. Could go either way. I know I'm saying the share price will likely like push a bit, then eventually go up or down, but there's nothing much I could say because it depends on earnings, and I can't truly predict what Elon Musk and the others will say. So that's my view for now. So make sure you watch these levels and get ready for earnings. It's going to be very key for Tesla. Now, how about for SPY? Looking at SPY, we're trying to hold our 20 EMA. I said this is going to likely start filling the gap if we break past 602. Lo and behold, that is what happens. So I think that we might be pushing to try to fill this gap tomorrow, especially as they make the decision to pause rates. And then what's going to happen is either we pump and break 610. If we break 610, I'm looking for 615 to 616, a nice pump on SPY to new all-time highs. Or if Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull, if we can't hold above our key levels, so we're going to be looking for a break of 602. If that fails us, we could be dumping a lot lower towards much lower levels, such as like 593 or below. So will Jerome Powell cause us to lose the 590s and dump, or do we end up breaking past all-time highs? It could go either way, so we'll see about that. So watch that very, very closely. That's going to be very key for the way that things develop. Could go either way. I do anticipate some upset to start things off, and then we'll see what happens with Jerome Powell's speech and the other factors. Looking at the charts, and by the way, guys, the market is bullish. In a nutshell, I'm very bullish on the markets for now. Approaching Jerome Powell, I think we're going to hold up well, but then after him, we don't know what's going to happen. So with Jerome Powell's speech, just know that approaching it, I think that we might try to push closer to like 525 or so on the triple Q. We're nearing a bullish cross on the PPO here, and we're making higher highs and higher lows. And we're trying to fill this gap. As long as we hold above 521.5, our 20 EMA, I'm looking for upside. If Jerome Powell gives us the launch, we're going to be looking for essentially a push towards 535 plus. If Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull from here, we could be looking for a rejection, and we could be making a move back down to 508. So it depends on what the big guy says. For now, I do anticipate some more upside for 525 to start things off tomorrow morning. Then we'll see if Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull or not. So keep that in mind. We should be going higher to start things off. Even on the Russell 2000, we got bought up again. We have a range between 227 and 225. I'm hoping we push to like the higher 227s. Then we'll see if we get a big bounce for 229 or if we get a big rug pull below 225. It could go either way depending on these factors, so give this the time it needs. I think we're range bound for now, so watch and see how things end up going, and we'll be very, very patient nonetheless, depending on the big guy. On ES, we look bullish. We're making higher highs, higher lows. Also, when you zoom out, and I think I forgot to mention this for SPY and the others, but we have this yellow resistance where we kept rejecting. This time around, after the news came out yesterday, we saw this dump and then bounce off the yellow line, so it's a good sign. And we're nearing a bullish cross in the PPO as we have a gap to fill. So what's likely going to happen is we consolidate. As long as we don't lose 650 or 6050, we're looking for an attempt to push for this gap fill for the 6100s. Then we're watching to see, do we continue to break out towards 6,200 or do we get a big rug pull back down to below 6,000? So it depends on what the big guy says. Look for some upside to start things off to fill this gap. Then we'll see what happens after that. For NQ, we want to see if this could break past 21,500. If that's the case, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to this imbalance. Eventually, this gap is going to get filled towards like 21,872. So I anticipate a little bit more upside. This may attempt to push towards the gap resistance, just like this. And then Jerome Powell's either going to launch this back up towards 22,000, or we're about to get a big rug pull back down below 21,500 to start dumping. So it could go either way. So give this the time it needs. We'll see about that just to be safe. So be very, very patient. For Bitcoin, we're stuck in the middle. We're looking at 101,000 as our support zone. If we lose 100,000, we're looking for a dump for 98,000. If we break past 102,800, we're looking for a pump back up to 104,000. We're going back and forth between these levels, so we'll see if we break out to the upside or the downside, so give this the time it needs. In my opinion, I think there's a good chance we try to push higher for 102,800, so give this some time and be very, very patient. For Nvda, Nvda, in my opinion, is doing a good job at holding up. I just want to mention that it's doing a good job at holding support. I said that I want to see it based at 117 to 120. If it does, we're looking for a bounce. Lo and behold, we based very close to that support zone, and we saw buyers return. So I think what's going to happen is we push higher. I think we try to go like this, back to this liquidity zone up here around this 133 area. Now, if we break it, I think we could be going even higher for like 138, but I'm not sure about that yet. That may have to depend on Powell and the other factors. I think tomorrow we push towards 130 to 133, and then Jerome Powell either launches this back up to fill this gap for a monstrous move to 140, or we get a big rug pull and we get a rejection here. We come back down. For now, look for some upside to start things off, and then watch and see what happens with Jerome Powell's speech. Could go either way, guys. You always want to be open-minded to that, so please keep that in mind. For Tesla, like I said before, it could go either way. I do anticipate a little bit of upside for the low 400s, but we'll see if we break this trend line of resistance to push to the 420s, or if we lose 384 to turn more bearish to jump to the 370s and then eventually 350s if we get that rug pull. Depends on those different factors. Apple's looking more bullish, but I think it's going to cool off a little bit because of some factors out there. So let me draw this out for you. What's going to likely happen is we have this resistance around this 240 area. We're kind of dipping towards 236 or so. We might dip a little bit like this. And then there's going to likely be a rebound, maybe a rerun right before the decision comes out by the Fed. And we'll be watching to see, is this like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder? If that's the case, Jerome Powell could launch us back up towards at least 245 plus or above, right? We're going to be looking for a nice bounce like this. If not, if this is a trap and we end up losing support at this like 231 area, I become a little bit more concerned and we could be dipping right back down. So I'm hoping we get the inverse head and shoulders breakouts to the upside. I do lean a bit more in favor of that, but we'll see depending on Jerome Powell. With that being said, guys, I went over more details for most of these tickers. I think my time for this video is limited, so I'm going to be very quick with the rest of these. Netflix did exactly what we predicted. We called out how there's a wedge forming. It's going to get very tight. We're only down 0.01%, so there's a lack of volatility right now because of that. We're going to break this wedge tomorrow, most likely after Jerome Powell's speech. Either we dump to about 937 or we get launched back up to about the 990s, close to 1,000, depending on which way we end up breaking. So please keep that in mind. For MSTR is trying to ride this white trend line up, making higher lows. So we'll see if we could try to get back above 340 to push for the 350s, or if we end up losing support right here around this 328 area to start dumping back down. As you guys can see, although we've been making lower highs, we're trying to hold this trend line. So what I think is going to happen is we will ride this trend line up like this, and then Jerome Powell's either going to launch this back up towards the 370s, or we get this big rug pull back down, depending on what the big guy says. So look for the trend line to hold, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For Celsius, we look a bit more bearish as we're making lower highs. I would love to see this break past 25.5 to push for 26.3. And if we end up losing 24.5, we're looking for a dip. We're a little bearish right now, so I think it could dip a little bit more to the lower 24s. And we'll see if we get a bounce or not, depending on Powell. So keep that in mind. For Supermicro, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We're making lower highs right now, as you guys could tell. I want to see this reclaim 29 to reclaim the low 30s, like 30.7. And if we end up losing 27 flat, we're looking for a much bigger dump. My suspicion is that this is going to rebound for essentially the 29 area as it's trying to base right here. And then we'll see if Jerome Powell helps this bounce or not to fill the gap. It depends on what the big guy says. But there might be a small bounce coming. Exactly as I predicted, I said Palantir is going to likely bounce. Lo and behold, we got that bounce to fill that gap. So this could be forming like an inverse head and shoulders. It looks bullish, but whether we turn bullish depends on this. We might push close. If we could hold above 80, I'm looking for essentially like 82 to 83 to be tested. Then we'll see if Jerome Powell launches this up towards like 85 plus, or if we get a rug pull back down to 76. Depends on what the big guy says. So we'll see if we continue to go higher, but we do look bullish, technically speaking, favoring 82 to 83. Rivian is completely range bound, going back and forth between these levels. If we lose 12.45, we're looking for a dump back down to 12. If we break past 12.93, we're looking for a push. We're completely range bound right now, but I favor a little push like this and some consolidation. We'll see if Jerome Powell gives us the break or like a rug pull. It depends. We'll wait for that. For a few more, we have SoFi completely range bound between 16.3 and 16.61 as resistance and support at 15 flat. It did try to bounce a little bit as I predicted, but I think it's going to do something like this where it kind of consolidates. And then Jerome Powell's either going to launch this back up towards the 18s or cause a rug pull. Remember, interest rates are very important for banks and stocks involved in banking, so keep that in mind. For AMD, we're on a bit of a downtrend, but we're trying to base here. Notice that it loves to try to hold around this like 113 zone. If you go really far back on the chart, you guys can see how that has been a key level. So if we can't hold 113, we dump to about 110. I'm hoping it's going to try to follow in Nvidia's footsteps. I hope we try to hold this and push back up to like 118 tomorrow. So I think it's going to be very tight, but there might be a small push like this. And then whether we get a big push to fill that gap to 123, if we get a rug pull, depends on what Jerome Powell says. But look for a small rebound to start things off, and we'll see what the reaction happens to be. For ARM, it's range bound. If we end up losing essentially 143, we're looking for a dump towards 135. If we break 154, we're looking for an attempt to push and fill this gap towards the 160. So it could go either way as we're just completely range bound. I favor this is going to try to bounce higher to start pushing. So give this the time it needs as time is developing. So I favor the bounce a little bit more, but we'll see depending on what the big guy says. If we break past 154, we're looking for a push towards 160. If we lose 15 or 143, we're looking for a dip back down. I favor upside a little bit more. Coin is in the middle, but we do have a gap to fill up here. So I'm hoping that we just consolidate like this. If we could break past 286, we're looking for 290, then eventually the gap fill for 298 is our targets. If we end up losing 274, we're looking for a dump back down towards like 268. So I'll give this some time to develop as we're just completely range bound. For Amazon has this resistance at 240 and we have support at 235. We're bullish. We're very bullish because even though Amazon dumped yesterday, we saw buyers defend it very strongly and they pushed it right back up. So although it might dip a little bit right here, I think that we're in a range between 240 and 235, but this chart wants to continue to do this. In all honesty, this is what it really wants to do. We'll see if Jerome Powell helps it pump more. If not, and if we end up losing like 233 and 230, we could be dipping back down. But just know the chart looks very bullish, at least compared to others out there. Meta looks very bullish. It's just continuing to get bought back up. It dumped yesterday only to get bought back up. So it's pumping approaching earnings. Be careful. Sometimes when stocks pump really hard approaching earnings, it's like a buy the rumor, sell the news event. But just to be safe, I think that Meta could be on its way to get very close to 700 or at least touch it during earnings. And we'll see if we maintain it or not, depending on how earnings goes. But if Jerome Powell gives us the rug pull, we could push a bit more than get a rejection back down. We'll see about that. I want to say that right now it's bullish. It looks like it wants to go for 700, but that depends on earnings. Microsoft got completely bought back up. Nice V-shaped recovery. If 448 breaks, we're looking for the 452 area. And if we end up losing 445, we're looking for a dump back down to 440. We look bullish. We'll see if we break past 448s to 450 to try to continue to push. In my opinion, I think we look bullish if 450 breaks. So I think we're doing a great job so far. I think there's a very, very good chance that this continues at least as time progresses. So once again, guys, I think that we're doing a good job and we're looking more bullish. So keep this in mind. The bulls have a bigger edge, at least for Microsoft, to try to continue to push for 450 plus. For Google, if we break 197, we're looking for an attempt to push up to 200. If we end up losing 194, we're looking for a dump back down to about 192. Overall, we look bullish, trying to break past 197, so I favor upside. It looks like it wants to try to fill this gap, but this depends on earnings and factors like that. For GameStop, if we manage to break past 27.5, we're looking for a push for 28.3. On AMC, if we manage to break past 3.37, we're looking for a push higher, so give that some time. DJT is stuck in the middle. I think this has the potential to push back up to 32.23. There's a very good chance it tries to do that, so keep that in mind. The VIX has a big gap to fill below, all the way down to 14.8, so it does favor that this is going to dump as the market tries to push. But the 10-year and the dollar depend on the Fed. So what's good is that we have a head and shoulders on the 10-year. This typically favors downside, which is bullish for the markets. The dollar also has a gap to fill below, so that's typically like a little bit more bearish for the dollar and more bullish for the stock market. So we'll see. Honestly, guys, the market looks bullish. SPY, Microsoft, the QQQ, Nvda, they look very bullish approaching tomorrow. Whether the bullish move pans out may depend on what the big guy Jerome Powell says. For Tesla, we have that factor, not to mention earnings, so get ready for tomorrow. It's going to be an absolutely wild day. I'll be back tomorrow before market open. Until then, I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day. I'll see you guys tomorrow before the market opens, and peace out.